Now, humans have been obsessed with transport since the beginning of time. And while we have had some early innovations in autonomous vehicles by way of the horse-driven cart, the last 100 years has really seen us regress. And now we need the full attention of the driver to operate a vehicle. Let me tell you a stat. Last year in Australia, 1,200 people died in a road accident. That's the equivalent of one Melbourne to Sydney flight crashing 7 times each year. And really, that's small scale because globally, 1.2 million people die each year. That's 7,500 Boeing 737s falling out of the skies. It'll make you think twice about booking your next Bali trip. So why are we really bad at driving? I mean, all we have to do is turn at the right time and brake at the right time. Simple, right? If we could do that, we would avoid most road accidents. But we're just not good at focusing for long periods of time. We may be thinking about an argument we just had. We might be running late for work. Maybe you're thinking about that handsome guy talking to you about self-driving cars. And some of you are just taking a selfie while you're driving. So while we market ourselves as commanders of these fast and furious vehicles, manufacturers have actually been building features that are trying to protect us from ourselves. Things like crumple zones, ABS braking, airbags, even things like parking assist, GPS, and lane follows. And while we're generally happy with the level of technology that's going into these features, it seems that we're getting to a point where we may not be as comfortable with computers driving us. So you may all recall, if you've been watching the news, that there was a fatal Tesla crash a few months ago. Now, this was one crash out of 2.5 million car fatalities worldwide, yet the whole world reported on it. Was there just nothing to report on that day? Or were we really skeptical of Clippy driving us? Now, that term self-driving cars, which was used in this case, and the Tesla is not yet a self-driving car, it gets thrown around a lot. So before we get into understanding how it works, let's just clarify what exactly we're talking about. On the left of this scale here are humans. We have a response time of about 2.5 seconds, which is at least 25 times slower than any computer-assisted technology. As we move up, we get driver-assisted technologies. This is where most of the self-driving cars we hear about today are, in this scale. These are things like parking assistance, automatic braking, even following the lane on a highway and avoiding all the other cars on the road at that time, which is where the Tesla car sits. As we progress, where we want to get is to the Google self-driving car. These do not require humans. There's one key difference when no human is required. When you need driver assist, a human is there, so if the car doesn't know what to do, the human can take control, and usually they recommend that you're constantly hands-on steering wheel. When no human is required, no steering controls are required, and this means the car needs to handle uncertainty. What do we mean by uncertainty? Let's take a look at a video from Google's self-driving car. What's happening in this video? That's a lady on an electric wheelchair chasing a duck around in circles on the street. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. We just can't think of that situation. And there are a lot of other anomalies that we need to cover when we're building self-driving cars. It could be like a police officer who's directing traffic on the road because of the signal failure. Or it could be that we're in Melbourne and in order to turn right, we need to go in the left lane for some reason. So how does it all work? Well, it uses a whole bunch of sensors. It's got GPS and maps, which are used to locate itself in the world and understand where it's going. We have cameras and computer vision, which are used to detect signals, traffic color lights, laneways. And we have LiDAR, which is like radar, but with lasers. So it's highly accurate and can see a lot further than we can as humans. All of this produces about 1 gigabyte of data a second. The car needs to know what to do with this. To kind of ground that for you, that's like us filling up 4,000 MacBooks each year for each of us. So let's see what Google does with all this. Let's take a look at the Google Cars view. So in this slide, the Google car's first got to understand where it is in the world, and it does this by placing itself on the map. It then needs to build a 3D understanding of what is going on around it. It does this by using deep learning techniques, and in doing so, it's to be able to identify those cars, which are purple in this map, a cyclist, which is in red, and the little orange dots ahead, they're safety cones, meaning there's probably roadworks up ahead. The car can see everything around it all at the same time. And this next step is to try and figure out what the cars ahead are going to do. So in this slide, we know that because there's roadwork there, this one car is going to have to go and pull into the lane, to the next lane beside it. But it's not good enough just to do it for one car. It has to do this for every single car. And once it can process all this information, cars, cyclists, cones, pedestrians, it's then able to plot a path, and it then knows how to follow that path. Ultimately, it boils down to two really simple things. Should I turn left or right? Should I accelerate or should I brake? Now, I think one of the most amazing things about self-driving cars, technology and mathematics and processing aside, is their ability to learn and share driving experiences. So above in the example, when the car saw those orange cones, it would update its map, and every other self-driving car in the network would be aware of roadworks on that lane ahead. And they'll be able to reroute themselves, or they'll be able to understand how to behave in that situation. See, our trip, which is driven by one car, is driven by all cars. And now let's put that into perspective. The Tesla fleet, which is still not yet a self-driving car, is learning to drive at 5 million kilometres a day. The average Australian drives less than 40 kilometres a day. If I drove that average rate for an entire lifetime of 70 years, I would be able to drive 1 million kilometres in my life. 70 years for me to drive that. The Tesla fleet is doing that every 5 hours. And the more cars that it adds to its fleet, the faster it's going to drive 1 million kilometres. These are rates that no individual is going to ever achieve, no matter how hard or how long we try and drive for. And this ability to sum experience, put on top with the ability for these cars to be able to process simulation data offline while they're not driving, means self-driving cars are going to learn how to get good at driving really, really quickly. And it means there's going to be a huge shift on our roads. At first, we'll be able to pull up a car on demand, and it's going to be a self-driving car. And next month, Uber will be launching this in Pittsburgh. Yes, the Uber self-driving car with Volvo is going to have some safety engineers behind the steering wheel, but it's getting really close to being a fully autonomous self-driving car. And the flow-on effect from this is going to be enormous. It means there's going to be less traffic on our roads. It means there's going to be more mobility options for disabled people. It means there's going to be reduced pollution. And our roads will be safer because cars will focus on driving and we'll be able to focus on getting that perfect selfie.